Okay, today we're going to discuss individualism versus collectivism in the context of the US versus China in means of their teams, their team dynamics, power, and then really why that matters as a whole. So just some basic definitions. Individualism is when people are considered good if they are strong, self-reliant, independent, and assertive. That's from Cherry 2020. So then collectivism in a collectivist culture is when people are considered good if they are generous, helpful, dependable, and attentive to the needs of others. Again, Cherry 2020. So really you're seeing two very opposite kind of ways of life, ways of thinking, values, and moral systems here. So China is the first one we're going to focus on. So China is a collectivist society. Social rules are focused on selflessness instead of selfishness. So working as a team or in a group is highly encouraged. And you do what's best for society over what's best for yourself. And then families and communities are valued. They're valued at an extremely high level. And that's all from Cherry 2020. So then when we compare that to the United States, so it's an individualistic society. So there's a focus on self-sufficiency. It's a focus on uniqueness, independence, autonomy. All of those kinds of things have a very high value in the culture in the United States. And then individual rights are viewed as more important than the rights of everyone. So again, that's all from Cherry 2020. So in terms of China, when we think about leadership, teamwork, dynamics, all of those kinds of things, obviously this is all generalized. Every organization is different. So there's a focus on big picture goals. That's from 11/20/20. So it's not a focus on what your goals are. It's a focus on what the organization's goals are as a whole. And then as a leader, you want to make sure you're not singling out individuals for praise or for feedback. That makes individuals very, very uncomfortable because it is such a group and such a collectivistic thinking. Again, 11/20/20. And then leaders are expected to dedicate a lot of time to building relationships. So in China, employees are expected they have the 996 rule, which is you work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That's kind of their standard work week. So a lot of employees work far more hours than we're used to here in the United States. However, as a result, those employees expect their leaders and their management to really build relationships with them. So that's 11/20/20. And then there's a strong importance and a strong really influence of building shared trust and respect within the workplace. So we're not just coming to work, we're building these relationships. Relationships are highly valued throughout the culture and society. And then you're going to value traditions over self-promoting ideals. So this is very, very different when you compare the United States to China. Because in China, they have this value of traditions and the value of respecting elders and following the processes and the way things have been to better society. And in the US, we're very, very focused on what is next, what is coming, what can we do that is better for us individually, us as a unique perspective. So it's from 11/20/20. So now thinking about it in terms of the US, so leadership, teamwork, and dynamics. So definitely a huge focus on individual development and promotion. So in the United States, there is very much a culture of it is a dog-eat-dog world, and you are pushing yourself to the top so you can be best for yourself instead of you're pushing yourself to the top to be best for society. And then we really want to confront issues head on. So leaders in the US have changed their leadership styles. And so when there's an issue or there is something that needs to be addressed, maybe from a performance standpoint or a teamwork standpoint, anything like that, a leader's just going to address it head on, which is very different from in China. So and that's from Chamorro and Premusic and Sanger 2016. So again, that straightforward communication is really a huge contrasting factor you're going to see in the dynamics. That's both in teamwork, in leadership, communication, all those things. We are very straightforward in the US and we're very honest, which can be very, very offensive to other cultures. And again, that is Chamorro, Premusic, and Sanger 2016. So then the final thing is there's an emphasis on individual goals instead of goals for the whole of the group or the whole of the organization or society. So very, very much what do you want? How do you want to get there? Focus on yourself. So now I want to talk about types of influence, do a quick recap here. So there are 6 major types of influence, and I think you're going to see these in every organization, in every culture, regardless of the level of individualism versus collectivism. However, there are certain kinds of influence that are more effective and more likely to be seen in different cultures based upon their cultural values. So there's legitimate power, which is power from your position, reward power, which is power because you can distribute rewards, coercive power, which is power based on threats and punishment, Expert power is power because of your level of expertise or knowledge or experience. Referent power, which comes from liking or respecting someone, and then informational power, which is the power of controlling certain information. All of that is Martin 2017. So when we think about China, there's an emphasis on legitimate power, which comes from their values of tradition, values of respecting elders, and really respecting those with experience. Then you're going to have an emphasis on expert power because as they work to be the number one manufacturer and really lead the world in terms of business, they need experts in their field to advance them. And then you're going to finally have an emphasis on referent power because there is such an emphasis on building relationships, building trust and respect. Having that means that those people that have built trust and respect have the referent power that you might not have otherwise. So then in terms of the US and influence and power. So obviously there is referent power here as well, but typically it's because of you build relationships to get ahead. You know, you get ahead because of the people you know, and so it's a different motivation really to build the referent power and use your referent power. Then there is an emphasis on legitimate power in some organizations. Organizations with a more flat structure instead of a hierarchical structure, you're going to see less of that legitimate power focus. And then you, of course, have the emphasis on expert power because, again, the US is also competing to be top for business and development, technology, and all of those kinds of things, which means we need experts in the field to push us there. So then you're going to bring them together. So really, why does all of this matter? We have all of these differences, but in an increasingly global society, we really have to be able to work together. You have to move beyond the differences of collectivism versus individualism and be able to be productive on the same team. So in research conducted by Chen and Trolsvold 2014, it was focused on leader orientations and leader goals. So leaders that were oriented towards productivity and their people, so their employees, can build cooperative team goals. So once you've built cooperative team goals, then you can build an effective team. Then once you have an effective team, you're able to stimulate productivity. So it all builds on top of each other. And that's really what their research showed. And it's really, really important because if you have leaders that aren't oriented toward their people and toward building these cooperative teams, they're oriented towards just having this individualistic, like, I'm the only one who's successful here, you're not going to long-term have a productive and efficient team, which long-term you're not going to be successful. So then we're also going to look at it from a leaders building trust perspective. So trust is obviously very important in the collectivism culture and the collectivism values in China, but it's also really important in the United States and when you try to start crossing cultures. So in research conducted by Chen, Fu, and Druckenmiller in 2016, they actually compared US and Chinese teams that they brought together. So leaders need to work to consciously build trust among their team, regardless of the level of individualism of the individuals in the team. So regardless of their culture, their level of individualism they're used to, they need to work to continuously build that trust. So then when you're facilitating that trust and you're trying to build that trust, facilitating collaborative intervention builds trust. So working to collaborate and then leaders intervening to help facilitate that collaboration is very, very important. So then when you are combining those individuals from the individualistic and collectivism cultures, from people from different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, languages, experiences, all those kinds of things, you're going to run into barriers. You're going to run into communication barriers, you're going to run into challenges, all of those kinds of things. And really it is important to develop collaboration programs, collaboration procedures, all of those kinds of things that minimize the influence of all of those past experiences. So you're going to want to minimize the cultural influence, the linguistic differences, all of those things. So then really you can facilitate a team where there's collaboration and there's trust in the leadership. So that is all that I have today. The last thing we just have are references here. It is really just important to, number one, identify and understand that there is a difference between collectivism and individualism in the workplace, but also then understand how to bring it together as a leader and build trust and build a successful and efficient team. Thanks.